Welcome.
Sound off.
All right, everybody. Timmy, you gonna get us going?
Let's just all get cracking of the beer can.
All right. So, not that there is much of a record, but this is being recorded tonight, so this will be, again, make sure you understand that in the old days, work sessions weren't recorded, and sometimes these are all recorded and can be reviewed, so, and Travis is not gonna be here this evening. Linda's gonna be late. Texted me. You're actually right on time. Did you speed?
Huh?
Huh? Don't answer
Yeah,
that
I was
question.
speeding.
All right. Don't answer the question.
Chief here?
Court is now in session.
Yeah, so it's 5:15, so we've got 3 items. I'm sure the third one will take longer than the second one, and the first one's probably going to be the shortest. So we'll start with an update on the Reimagine Wenatchee progress. So Laura, why don't you come up and get us caught up?
Good evening, Council. Laura Gloria, Executive Services Director. I just have an update on the process for the Reimagine Wenatchee Master Plan to date. Wanted to share the high-level outcomes of the Discovery Report, which is available now.
So you want to back up just so everyone sort of knows, no, just what Reimagine Wenatchee is, what we're doing, why we're here,
Oh,
sort of how
that's my next
how it
slide.
got going, so then
Yes.
we can have some context.
Yeah, so that is slide 1.
Oh, there it is, okay.
So, what is the Wenatchee, Reimagine Wenatchee Target Area Master Plan? So, the goal of the work is that there's a variety of private and publicly held developments that are happening in a very small area that are slated for the Wenatchee downtown in the coming years. So the plan really was focused to help us look at all of that and plan for that for the future, especially since these are pretty big catalytic projects, and I have a map here on that in just a second. So this is sort of the area that we're looking at, but we'll hone it a little bit more. So the area in the blue line, oh, you can't see my cursor. So the thick blue line
Yep.
is really the extent of kind of the waterfront, the downtown, and the Columbia Street Warehouse District. We also kind of outlined where the South Wenatchee Business District is, because those are really critical transition points. And so we wanted to make sure that we're not just focusing in the area, how else does it connect to the outer lying areas? The areas that are the other smaller highlights are those big catalytic projects that I was talking about. So there's the blue one with the black outline, that's the PUD redevelopment. The one just to the I guess south of it is the Wenatchee Convention Center. The yellow is all of the properties that are owned by the Chelan Douglas Regional Port. And then the orange in that tippy top corner is the Mission and Kittitas redevelopment that's owned by Widener, and that will be developed as apartments. So this is kind of a even more zoned in version of that. So this is, again, really geographically a small area, but there's, let's see, Riverfront Park has about $15 million in upgrades over the phases of the project, so not all at once, but that's still a pretty big investment. The Columbia Street project, and we also have a lot of utility projects that are forthcoming, and so we're trying to plan those all together. The Majestic, which is the Widener project, that's about $40 to $50 million. The Wenatchee Museum, which we'll hear about here in a bit, anywhere from $15 to $20 million. So again, these numbers add up very quickly, and again, they're generally in a very small area or geographic area. So where are we now? So we just completed the discovery phase, and the discovery phase means we met with a lot of folks to figure out, okay, what is going on? What are the current conditions? So we did a driving tour with our consultant team at Northwest Studios, Link Transit, and the Chelan Douglas Transportation Council, and that was really to understand, again, the entire city as the scope, and then kind of understanding how that fits and how that impacts the smaller study area. And then, of course, looking at it from a transit and vehicle perspective. We also did a walking tour after that with a bunch of downtown stakeholders. We had about 35 attendees. It was actually very well attended. We started at the PUD property on the south end and walked along the Ave down to the Columbia Street properties. And during that time, a lot of the stakeholders were talking about, it'd be great if we had more housing upstairs in some of these units. This is really a challenge, or this is really an opportunity. So the consultant was collecting all of that feedback and that data. And then the last thing that we did was just an overall public meeting. We invited that group from the walking tour as well as the the driving tour to come down to sit down and actually start to think, okay, what does reimagining Wenatchee look like? So they did an exercise where they had a postcard and said, hey, write yourself a postcard from the future. What does Wenatchee look like? So that was kind of the kickoff point to say, okay, we've talked about what's here. Let's start to reimagine what could happen. So the discovery report, as I mentioned, is out, and here's what it entails. So it has, the consultant kind of broke it down into a variety of different feature areas. So the report talks about parking, civic life, the regulatory landscape, transit, walking, biking, rolling, so pedestrian facilities, connectivity, and freight. And then it also identified some observations and opportunities that kind of play into each of those. So observations, these are just some of them. There's more in the report, but I wanted to just throw a couple out there just so that you can kind of see what they're talking about. So downtown is largely built out, so a lot of the new redevelopment will probably be infill or kind of these big mega projects like the PUD's property. That second bullet kind of calls that out. There's actually a lot of property that's owned by the city, the port, and the PUD in that small area. Another observation that was interesting was that target area that we're looking for has about 4,000 lineal feet, but we've only got 3 points of access to the waterfront, so the connections back and forth east to west are challenging. The other one that I thought is interesting, and I don't think we talk about, is there's a direct contrast between the needs for pedestrians, but also the needs for businesses to have, drop-offs for businesses, to be able to get their deliveries to the restaurants. So how do you manage all of that? Because of course, those are all important. And then parking, as always, is one of our favorite conversations. So downtown does have a lot of parking stalls, over 7,500, but what we noticed too was that a lot of them are on private sites, and so those might be underutilized. That might be a conversation to have with those private property owners, or take a look at that and talk about it a bit more. Opportunities, that piece again about the amount of land that's in public ownership. There's lots of redevelopment opportunity along Columbia Avenue. There's an opportunity to leverage new connections, like the Electric Avenue connection that's anticipated at the PUD's redevelopment site that would connect through the PUD site down to like the back of the convention center. We have an opportunity to identify parking hubs. We do have parking areas, but again, those east-west connections can sometimes be challenging. They can be especially challenging when we have an event that closes down the Ave, and now how do you get to the one place that you need to get to? So seeing it on a map was really interesting. How do we integrate mobility connections into a unified system? So how do we make sure that people can get to where they need to get to, especially visitors and tourists, even local residents, though sometimes don't even know where some of these places are. And then the last big opportunity, and again, there's more in the report, is looking at the ability to expand and explore the use of available space for civic and community opportunities. So for example, the plaza at the Wenatchee Convention Center, Centennial Park, or there's some other spaces that we can use for programming for civic life. And then lastly, the report goes into some potential funding options. It's not recommending anything. It's really just an educational page or a couple pages that talks about here are some opportunities that you guys could start to consider and look at. And all of these make up the funding stack to help pay for these future projects. So you could look at a community facilities district, private funding, grants, public, tax increment financing is something we've talked about, and then business improvement districts. Those are all different sectors of industries, private, public, and nonprofit, but what we've seen in other places is that's usually the way to success for these big projects. So that's the review of the discovery report, but we will be having a meeting next week on Tuesday and reviewing it at a high level. Basically, did we miss anything and what else should be prioritized? And really it's that second question, is what should be prioritized is going to be the outcome of the meeting, because we'll take those priorities and then take them into the November 1st workshop, which is, okay, now that we've said A, B, and C are our priorities, what does that look like? How can we start to develop those a little bit further? And then that will be in the actual final plan with the recommendations.
And that's at PIBUS next Tuesday?
That is correct. Both events will be at the local event center.
Okay.
And yeah, that's it. Happy to answer any questions. If you want more information, again, the report is on the website, as well as more of the background, the maps, and then the flyer for the upcoming event.
When we get to a final product, are we going to expect a look at, say, Columbia Street and what that would look like in terms of sidewalks and lighting and some sort of things to get people excited about what the possibilities are?
Yeah, it kind of touches on that as an opportunity at a high level. It shows, here's what it looks like now, here's potentially what it could look like streetscape wise. That's where we're really, the November 1st meetings where we'll dive into those details of
Okay.
what could this look like. I think what we'll get though are concept level, and then we can continue to work and refine that, if that is something that we want to get to a design level as part of a future project.
Okay.
But I think we'll get far enough to know, we'd love to do sidewalks on one side or do the raised docks because it's a warehouse district, or what should play there, what could go there. We'll get to that point, yeah.
Any questions for Laura?
No.
Thanks for the update.
Thank you.
Interested to figure out what the final conclusions are and how to execute a plan to
Yeah,
keep downtown cool.
yeah, be very cool. Great,
Thanks,
thank you.
Laura. You used up 11 minutes of your time. Not that I'm keeping track. Mariah, what's going on with the museum? Your new project.
Project.
Lots going on.
The
Come
way
up with
we're gonna keep downtown cool.
exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, that one right there.
Well, there you are.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you all for having me here today. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Mariah Thornock. I'm the executive director over at the Wenatchee Valley Museum and Cultural Center. And you probably have, I've sat in several of your committee meetings to talk about this, but I haven't had a chance to come to you guys as a general council to talk about a project that we're taking on at the museum. Something that Laura highlighted that's in the Reimagine Wenatchee plan. But I wanted to start off by, before I launched into the project, talk about where the genesis of this, where this came out of. And that was in 2020, 2019-2020, the museum went through a pretty extensive strategic planning process. We involved anywhere from 300 to 600 members of our community on various levels to look at the impact that the museum was having on the community and could have on the community. Out of that came three main goals for the museum over the next 5 years, which was to update the guest experience, both through our programming and our exhibits, strengthen our organizational capacity, include our financial capacity and our facilities, and then create a deep connection with the community on arts, culture, history, and heritage. And one of the big the big burly goals that we have for the museum is to reach every individual in North Central Washington. And that could be coming through the doors of our building, that could be our educators going out to schools, tours across the region. So this was our strategic plan that we set forth, and even though we were in the middle of a major pandemic, shortly after this was adopted, we set to work on it, and quickly found that one of our largest barriers actually was the facility that we were in. We had eager educators willing to work with us, we had great tour guides, but our exhibits were in pretty dramatic need of updating. Some of them haven't been updated in over 30 years. And our facility itself, as you know, the first and second post office for Wenatchee, while we love the building, it wasn't well suited to have hundreds and sometimes even upwards of almost 1,000 people in it at one point in time. It was built to serve a customer who goes and comes very quickly. So not ADA compliant, not accessible, and the general facilities aren't well suited for a large community or large community events. Everything from there I think is a total of 6 bathroom, like individual restroom stalls throughout the museum, and we have 800 people for Multicultural Fest in the museum. That's not ideal. So we then set forth with another community engagement process. Is what do we need to do as a museum to be a part of the 21st century to support this community better? And quickly it did rise that these buildings were important to the community and we needed to address it. So we brought them in and built a vision. And so that vision was to look at where we needed to update our exhibits, identifying that throughout the museum, what needed to be rehabilitated, and what needed to grow. And from that, this concept came forward, that we found that in addition to needing to upgrade the overall facility, we had an underutilized asset at our back door, which was Centennial Park. And that as the museum, we wanted to be able to use Centennial Park more for our programming. We found that our community around us wanted to be able to utilize it as well. So the idea of flipping the front door of the museum, being able to create an engaging, open, welcome lobby for the new museum with a new plaza that led into the park, was something that's really sparked the interest and the excitement in a lot of our community members. And we've been able to really see how this will change the museum experience. It'll open up an outdoor opportunity for us, not only through programming, but just in the daily museum visitor. We're taking many of our amenities like Coyote's Corner, which is our children's museum, instead of being tucked away up on a second floor, bringing that down to the first floor. It's more accessible for families. It lets us have that indoor-outdoor play space that a lot of children museums have. We also, as you can maybe see kind of right next to that stairs, putting the ramp and right next to the entrance of the museum. So everybody who enters the museum gets to enter it from the same space. Right now, if you need to use a ramp, whether it's a stroller, a walker, or a wheelchair, you actually have to enter through the back door of the museum, which isn't the most welcoming way to be welcomed in. School districts in our strategic plan and our engagement with our local schools and our regional schools is a very high priority at the museum, and it was something that we heard loud and clear from our educators, that not only the museum going out to schools, but being able to come to the museum was very important. So a lot of the modifications that we're making are making it safer and easier for school buses to pull up to the museum, a large amount of students to be able to unload. Right now, we have 2 school buses show up and suddenly 150 students are right there on Mission Street. We all know how busy Mission Street can get. And walking up a ramp with 2, basically 1 door to get through, it takes a while for those kids to get in. We're reconfiguring it so Yakima Street, which is a much quieter street, buses will be able to pull up there. There will be a ramp right there, and a large amount of school kids will be able to exit the sidewalk quickly and get into the museum. We also are looking at the new lobby of the museum. That we kind of rewind to that first picture where it showed this hyphen building right in the middle there. It's mostly a glass structure, so light-filled lobby. We are going to ensure that the historic parts of the building, that those exteriors will become our interiors. So we're not going to be hiding them away. They're not going to go into disrepair. They're going to be right there in the walls of the new building, putting up people up close to historic preservation, but in a light-filled way, with an central elevator right there, central stairs right there, and the opportunity to actually bring out more of our collections and start putting our collection pieces as a part of the new architecture of the building. And then in the smaller, or the lower image, you'll see that's the second floor of that new addition, and we'll have an outdoor spaces there as well. So something that we don't have a lot of in Wenatchee. Pybus has been kind of the forerunner of that, of actually having a lot of outdoor spaces with great views. We're gonna have this with the new museum, an outdoor space there where we can have lectures, we can have classes, or the daily visitor can go up on a lobby and be able to lobby deck and be able to see all of downtown, the valley, the river, and upwards. So they really get a sense of our area from the second floor of the museum. So this is a look at that kind of relationship between the new addition to the museum, the rehabilitated museum, and the park. Really, what we're talking about right now with our current project is the property line of the museum, and then addressing the alleyway as well. So that way there is safe access from the park, from downtown to the museum, safe access from the parking lot that's right there off the park, But we are really hoping that it'll have a chance to transform that neighborhood of Wenatchee Avenue. We're well aware of the developments that are happening close by, especially with the potential of many new residents coming in. And so having 200 plus households right next door to the museum, we want to make sure that that not only just addressing the museum, but addressing the alleyway will make sure that those residents have a safe and welcoming way to come into the museum. And by reactivating the park, we are hoping that will be an activation point for businesses along that South Wenatchee Avenue. A lot of the foot traffic we see right now stops at Orondo Avenue. And with a renovated museum, with a reactivated park, pulling that walking traffic down Wenatchee Avenue will be a benefit for our neighborhood. So costs, because projects like these are, not inexpensive. We right now are estimating this project, and we'll have to update your your slide. We've got recent cost estimates that are putting the project, the building and the new exhibits at $30 million. So the 22 million that you see up there, 22.5, that is the new addition to the building, that one that I showed, light-filled lobby, is about 3.5 million. The site work, which is the new plaza, but it's also new public works that are going in, fire hydrants. We are putting in 2 new fire hydrants down there. We're rehabbing the alleyway through there because we are also having our maker space right off the alley there. We want to make sure that it's not in great shape right now and it's a welcoming and it's a safe place to walk up to. That's about 1.2 million. The majority of the project funding will go into rehabilitating those 2 buildings that we have right now. So we're looking at cost estimates of the old post office building, which is the main entrance to the museum right now, both those floors being about 5.5, and then the annex, which is the smaller, being about 3.5. We have contingency built in, general contractors' costs are built into that. And then in addition, we have estimated anywhere from 4 to 6 million for new exhibits, and not only new exhibits all along the second floor of the museum, but new exhibit spaces downstairs as well. So where we're at, we have completed phase 1, which is concept designs, advanced work, and feasibility studies, and we're in the middle of phase 2. We're just getting to the end of schematic design. We just this week received 100% schematic design and new cost estimates. We're also building up our capital campaign committee for this. This project is going to need to be funded by both public entities throughout the region that support us and a philanthropic effort locally. Hoping to have funding and construction documents by 2025. Our hope is that by the summer to fall of 2025, we'll be on our way to constructing the new museum. The museum as it stands, the operations of the museum are going to continue to be ongoing while this project is ongoing. If we have to move off-site, we are looking at locations in downtown that we can open up. We're looking for off-site storage for our collections. So the public won't see a dramatic change to museum operations. They'll just see a different way at visiting their museum. And if we could stay on track with that 2025 construction start, then we estimate about 2 years for both construction of the building, rehab of the old buildings, and fabrication and installation of the new exhibits. And I am hoping to come back this spring and show you what those new exhibits may look like. We have just brought on an exhibit designer within this last month as well. So in addition to some outreach that we have done with different members of your council here, we also have been meeting with City of East Wenatchee, Chelan and Douglas County, the PUD, the Port Authority, Downtown Association. This has been a regional effort on our part to make sure that the plans that we have are feasible, that they're what the community is wanting and looking for, and that we have support across the region. We're really lucky in this last biennium to secure some funding from the state to help support the costs that are going into the design work that we're doing right now. And all of the partners that you saw there are ones that submitted letters of recommendation along with this council for this design work. So thank you for sending that forward. That is definitely allowing us to move forward with our capital campaign funding, ensuring that designs are happening at the same time. That's my update. I'd love to take any questions from anybody here.
So I have one question, and I don't know if it's for you or for Alyssa, but we've committed $2 million to the renovation to some been our commitment. We're gonna put $1 million in next year's budget.
Correct.
Mostly, I think, the way at least I looked at it, and I don't know if the council looked at it the same way, was, we're gonna have to do some of that work anyhow. New windows, new heating and air conditioning, new sorts of stuff in a building that's super old. So the $1 million that we're putting in next year is going to what sorts of things? Is it gonna be going to windows and stuff that isn't gonna be part of the remodel, but is still part of the overall experience? Help me
Yes.
figure out where that's sort of going.
So, so what we looked at when we were looking at we did a facility assessment back in 2021 that outlined all of the needs for the buildings as they stand. And there was significant historic restoration needs that had to happen on the building. Windows, as you pointed out, there are cornices around the building. The stairs needed repointing. I think we identified at least $1.5 million just in exterior historic preservation efforts that needed to happen with the building, and then including some, interior work as well. That kind of work and why we can move it forward in 2024 isn't something that's going to be undone by construction. So, so the work that we're looking at right now, and I would look to Alyssa to just make sure that I'm not telling you guys a tall tale here.
She'll let you know if there's something wrong, so.
But it is addressing some of those critical issues that
Okay.
came out in that facility assessment. It will hopefully take that 30 million number down by,
Right.
however much we're putting, the $1 million that we're putting in now, and then the $1 million that we're putting in 2025. That's all part of the 30 million that we're
But at
looking
some
at.
point, the council could walk by this year and see stuff happening to the outside of the building and go, that's where our money is going. Whether it's windows or facade treatment or those things you said, I don't even know what they are.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
I assume that if you see scaffolding, and you will see some sort of scaffolding up around the museum, you'll know that, that we're getting to work on that, and that money is going to be put into that, so.
Perfect. Council members, any questions for Mariah? Councilmember Kulas sits on their board. Anything to add?
Big project. Gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
It'll be great.
thank
yeah.
you.
Good
Yeah.
luck with your campaign, and I know you've got some fairly large donors already in, and so hopefully we can get you most of the way there.
Yeah, that would be wonderful, and and hopefully, just a few years goes quickly.
Yes.
So, I think many of you will get to see most of this process go through. So, I'm happy to come back when we reach some other major milestones.
Excellent. Thanks, Mariah.
All right, thank you.
All right, and our third and final item, which is broken into 3 separate spots, is a quick update on Confluence Parkway from Jake, and then, as you know, part of our funding, including the 2 pedestrian bridges over on the Black Bridge, the 2 connections, and then Emma's gonna get us up to speed on North Wenatchee Avenue. I think the essence of that is that there's another $16 million to be spent there, more near the Starbucks and Wendy's, and the state's asking us to take that on and do that project. So I think Emma will get us up to speed on what that might look like. I think there's some updated design. Jake,
We
it's all yours,
volunteered
sir.
as well, but I won't
What's that?
steal Emma's thunder. I said, I think we volunteered as well.
Oh, okay, we
We
did?
have interest in
Okay.
delivering that, so. Are you gonna run the slides? Sorry, the mouse started going. So yeah, we are here to talk about the Apple Capital Loop.
We are dark on our screens, by the way. Not that anyone cares, but we are. We're dark here. And I'm assuming Jake's got very important things for me to look at.
Yeah. I'm gonna let the
Hey,
slides
there we
work,
go.
so.
Thank you.
So again, yeah, we're, myself, Ryan, and Emma are here to give an update on the Apple Capital Loop, slate of projects for you guys. It's, especially on some of these, it's kind of been a whirlwind the last year. And so, just to catch you guys up, the Apple Capital Loop is what we had submitted for the infra grant in, partnership with WashDOT and some other partners. And so that the slate of components or segments that make up the Apple Capital Loop are shown here, and this was straight out of our infra application. You can see segments 1A would be one that we're talking about today, the North Wenatchee Avenue improvements. 1C was the roundabout constructed already by WashDOT, and then 3 and 4 are also WashDOT projects. Segment 1B and 2A make up component 3, which is what we refer to as Confluence Parkway South. And then segment 2B was Confluence North, which was not selected in the initial round of the infra award. And then segment 2C, the South End Bike and Pedestrian Access Bridges, which was also funded by the infra grant that we received in 2021. So just to kind of set the stage, and so then the first part, I'll be updating you guys on Confluence Parkway, which is really a combination of the McKittrick Underpass and then Confluence South and North, because we are delivering those as a single project. So in the spirit of work session, I'll go through this, but if you guys have questions, just hop in there and ask me, and of course at the end, I'll want to answer any questions you have as well, but you know, happy to have this be an interactive discussion as well. So just to kind of update and make sure we're all on the same page in terms of what the project was. An overview here, you can see the primary goal is to create a new north-south route through Wenatchee, paralleling SR 285 and providing another access across the Wenatchee River. And so this builds a 2.5-mile arterial street, primarily to provide congestion relief on 285, which just in addition to cars, also improves the reliability of our transit service, and as well as additional route for emergency evacuation routes on the north end of town, where we are constrained by the Columbia, the Wenatchee River, and the foothills to our west. The 2-lane arterial street will consist of bike lanes, sidewalks, and a 2-way left turn lane where appropriate. We are eliminating 3 existing at-grade crossings of the railroad through the corridor, constructing 2 new grade separations, building a 700-foot long bridge across the Wenatchee River, and relocating about a little under a mile of the Apple Capitol Loop Trail, which is the location where it parallels Holly Street, kind of as a sidewalk there between the road and the PUD parking. So the project was broken into two segments, really. As I said before, the infra award only funded the Confluence South, and so that's really everything from Holly to the south. So includes the 2 grade separations and then some reconfiguration of the intersection at SR 285 and Wenatchee Avenue and Miller Street. The Move Ahead Washington funds that were received can be used on that Confluence South segment, as those were a Confluence Parkway infra match amount. This is the component that will really be the primary focus moving forward, because with the grant came some deadlines of we need to obligate all of those funds by next summer. And so what that means is really to work to advance our design, determine the actual scope that's available within that available funding that meets the purpose and need of the project. So we need to provide that stuff to the feds to release the remaining funds. And if we miss that deadline, the funding is at risk from being lost. So that's been kind of another reason for the whirlwind that's been happening this year. Everything north of Holly Street, including the trail relocation and the PUD land exchange, those are included in that Confluence North. That also includes the river bridge as really the primary element there in terms of the purpose of the project. And so this infra dollars was about 97 million, which included 10 million of local funding, and then the Move Ahead Washington was 85 million. So total all-in cost, we have 172 million available. That's design, right-of-way, construction, administration, and utility relocation costs. So really everything we have needs to fit within that budget. And so we do consider that this is a once-in-a-generation project, something of this size and significance. And so we're looking for a good partner to help us bring this to fruition by balancing those needs. And that is something we put forward to all the teams that were pursuing this project over the last year. A few other key considerations were also discussed, and I was going to share those here as some goals that kind of rose to the over the course of our procurement process. So, with a project of this size, it's a major investment for the city. We're adding 2.5 miles of road, 3 new bridges, and a lot of other related features to our system. So building a facility that minimizes our long-term maintenance and operation, that'll be a key consideration in our decision-making going forward. Really want to set future Wenatchee up well with this investment we're putting into our infrastructure. Landmark for the future, so it's a big opportunity again with this major project, and we want to make sure we walk away with something that we're all proud of. This new bridge over the Wenatchee River that again is going to be accessed by everyone from cars, buses, also bikes, pedestrians. We want this to be something that really like our children can be proud of and point to years to come. And so part of that is also making sure that decisions we make, this infrastructure fits in access, aesthetics, and other things to the area and the surrounding infrastructure. And then last but not least, we want to be able to maximize the project with the funding that's available, and also the deadlines, most importantly. So making decisions and a good, effective use of right-of-way acquisitions, utility coordination, and all those other things in order to meet our deadlines and use all this funding. And so with that, I kind of want to just take a minute and I mentioned it's been a whirlwind, but I just wanted to mention some of the accomplishments, since the project was awarded the infra grant in 2021. We did not get advanced construction authorization until December of 2022, and basically that's when we got authorization to spend money that would be reimbursable by the grant. So that happened on December 19th. We executed a contract with Jacobs, our owner advisor, on December 19th. We had at that point brought on a legal advisor and project advisor, Robin Thaxton. By February, we were in front of the Washington State PRC to get approval. We selected our delivery method, Progressive Design Build, in February. That March, we were in front of the state to get approval to use alternative delivery for this project, which we received approval. Then May came around and we were able to secure the Move Ahead Washington funding. The same month, we put out an RFQ to design builders and shortlisted in July, and then put an RFP out 3 days later. And then this last Tuesday, we've notified our design builder who was the highest scoring proposer, and I'll share that with you here shortly. So, along the way, in addition to putting together several hundred pages of contract documents and RFP for that process, we've been meeting bi-weekly with PUD, our own utility staff, adding more work to Jessica's plate to kind of advance and get in front of and aid our design builder as much as possible. In addition, advancing the railroad design for the grade separations, surveys, record research, trying to establish existing right-of-way, and then also identifying risks and coming up with some mitigations. One of those I wanted to go over here to kind of give a change to the base configuration that was identified. And so several risks were identified in this Miller Street corridor, one being the regional water main, 30-inch water main that runs down Miller and turns down Walla Walla Ave. There are storm and sewer mains at Miller and BNSF crossings. The site distance at Walla Walla and Miller Street is constrained already. There's large PD transmission overhead lines west of Miller Street. And then, so thinking about all these elements as we looked at raising or lowering Miller Street, really put a constraint on that, relocating a lot of significant utilities. In addition, That would result in some walls right next to, you can see these large agricultural facilities on the east side of Miller Street, which we were going to need space. So that also and had some impact to access to, you can see there, Bluebird and these other facilities. So looking at this, what we had identified that the roadway was going to need to shift to the west instead of being a symmetric widening like what was planned in the original configuration. And so here you can see an idea that came to basically take advantage of that, only impact on one side of the road, shift it off alignment so that we could preserve the access, these buildings to the east of Miller Street, as well as avoid these water mains. So that 30-inch water line, we were hearing that the offline time is maybe a few hours, which turning that off and relocating, and that'd be a significant challenge to the project. So in addition, with these underground utilities, the storm and sewer in Miller Street, we started looking at the opportunity to go over the tracks at Miller. And so that's what you see here. And really this going over the tracks and shifting the alignment more to the west, really, while there's definitely impacts in this design, it minimized the overall impacts, as well as it's eliminated quite a few risks from the project, and we will see some cost savings. So this is one of the ideas that we had been pursuing through bringing on a design build partner, and one that we'll hand over to that partner to kind of take the next step in evaluating and validating that. And so, over the last 4 months, the city, with a lot of hard work and long hours by our project team, which included Jacobs as our owner advisor and our legal advisor, Robin Thaxton, went through a procurement process. And on Tuesday, we notified Kramer Scarcella joint venture in partnership with KPFF Engineering that they were the highest scoring proposer to the project of the original 5 teams. So a little bit about that team. Kramer is an established contractor, very experienced in large transportation projects as well as those utilizing alternative delivery. They've been a contractor for about 112 years, I believe, last I checked. And most recently, they completed and did some work on the West Seattle Bridge repairs, so a big, large project there, as well as a almost $500 million highway project in Colorado. And so that same project manager was on this team that did that work in Colorado. They partnered with Scarcella Brothers, who also brings 78 years of experience working in Washington State on large transportation projects and with significant utility relocations. And another example there was they worked for the Port of Seattle, restoring a 14-acre site along the Duwamish River, so a hazardous cleanup site. And then KPFF, their lead designer, they've been operating out of Washington State for 63 years with over $1.5 billion of design build work for Washington State Department of Transportation. That includes the state's first progressive design build project, removing 29 fish passage barriers on the Olympic Peninsula. I also wanted to just take a minute to recognize the other proposers that pursued with us over the last few months, which was a joint venture of Flatiron and Goodfellow Brothers, Guy Atkinson, Stacy Whitbeck and Cooney, and then the Walsh Group. They all had impressive teams and put a significant amount of effort and investment into the project over the last 4 months. And it just, it showed that we had a good project that was attractive to contractors. And unfortunately, you can't pick everybody, but just want to recognize that there was a lot of effort and really impressive proposals that were submitted by all of those teams. So looking to kind of the next steps, we will start in working with this team to start negotiations and really try to get them under contract as soon as possible to get going on a validation phase as we work towards our obligation date of next summer. Again, the validations, we need to get together with him to validate all the work that's been done to this point, determine our target budget and schedule and scope of the project, and get a reliable cost estimate that we can hand over to obligate the remaining funds. We anticipate getting through validation by next spring and moving into design development to further advance the preliminary design, build out the cost models, start to advance right-of-way activities, and work towards what we call the guaranteed max price. So guaranteed max price is where when we have the design somewhere between 30 and 60%, and we have reduced the contingencies of the risk to kind of an acceptable spot with both parties, we'll enter into an agreement to have them finish the design and then also build the project. And so at that point, it could be a guaranteed max, and we continue with a similar model of a sort of hourly rates or not to exceed, or we may do a lump sum. And with the schedule, you'll see the Confluence Parkway South. Again, that date to get that GMP, the obligation is next summer. So looking to submit that next June to obligate the funds by September, with a possible construction to start spring of 2025. Confluence North, it does show that it lags a little bit behind because it doesn't have those infra-grant deadlines. Gives us time to work out more contingencies around the bridge, obtain some environmental permits for working in the river and through the Haran area, some of those other long lead items. And I'll just point out, this was our team's kind of look at how the schedule can go, but that's going to be something else we'll work with our partner over the next month to refine and how they intend to meet our deadlines. So with that, I will open up for questions.
So moving everything as you're driving north to the left, so that you're kind of preserving Miller Street and raising up over the tracks. How does that affect the existing businesses in that area?
So one of the things that we considered when we were looking at this, and we have met with the owners of that complex, including showing this exhibit, is they have accesses right onto Miller Street as it is. And when we really starting to, a lot of the line work that was developed in the preliminary configuration, as we started to look closer at it, there's going to be big impacts to those businesses and how they operate. And it seems there's a very likelihood that they're going to result in a total acquisition. And so if we're going to be acquiring those parcels and paying to relocate them, by shifting this, we can now avoid impacts to the other side of Miller Street.
But raising it up high enough doesn't give them access, or it just doesn't work for support of the raised road?
No, so whether we go over or under, it was going to be some significant walls between the tracks and getting towards the Circle K lot there. You can kind of see the little blue boxes, and so that was something we were tracking, looking at the accesses and profiles to make sure that where those existing accesses are, knowing where the driveways would be and if they are still feasible to remain. And so for the complex there with Tacoma Screw, the Franz Bakery, you can see there's two of those blue boxes would be going away for the road. We would be reducing that down to a couple of access to that site. And that's something we'd have to work out with them as we refine the design, look at opportunities to retain as much as we can, but of course that would be part of those, their compensation.
So this decision has not been made yet. This is something you're thinking about, that is, you want to make sure the council is aware of, that there's a
That's right.
chance we could have an overpass as opposed to an underpass as you start analyzing.
And I guess that's what I was looking at. Is there a pro and con for overpass versus underpass for those businesses? And it sounds like either way we go, they're going to be affected.
Yeah, over or under, the walls would be significant that some of those accesses will be, won't be able to remain there. And so another part of this, in addition to, the large utilities under Miller that were looking to be problematic if we go under, was working with the railroad. If it is feasible to go over, it could be an uphill battle with them to be able to go under, because with an overpass, that will be our bridge, if we go under, now that's a railroad bridge. They would much rather just retain, be on fill than be on a structure themselves. It limits their future growth opportunities and increases their maintenance. And so that was another consideration that was looked at.
You've done a lot of work, you got a lot of work to do, so congratulations to you and your team. It'll be fun to see this sort of work its way through, and I know there's a lot of moving parts, and I know the 85 million has a little bit more flexibility than the 92 million does, so I know you're really juggling to try to figure out, and the 92 has got a time frame that's got to get cranked, so
Yeah.
I know you're taking that all into account as you sort of plan for.
And it's a good point. So as we move forward with this partner, we look at the project as a whole. There's a lot of elements, and we have identified the strategic objectives. I would say are really these two grade separations and the bridge over the river. We need to have an access across the river, and so we'll be keeping that in mind, and that's going to be part of that balancing. And I think it can lead to maybe some design revisions, practical design opportunities in other areas such as the intersection through Old Station, where we'll look for opportunities for value engineering and because we really look at those, the biggest cost of the project is absolutely the right-of-way acquisition. Thinking, we have some parcels that we know we have to go out and acquire, the McDougal warehouse, and some of the other ones is covered in that land exchange agreement. So we'll be working through that. And I know that has been another topic as of late. And that's another reason we're looking forward to bringing our partner on. We'll start advancing those right-of-way activities, which will be much more of a public outreach to start as we start to refine the design. And we'll be meeting with a lot of these property and business owners to inform ourselves of how they use their property. If there is going to be an acquisition, the team that was the highest scored had already come to the table identifying locations for relocation, suitable relocations for a lot of these businesses. And so that'll be part of that project as well, as working with them, for those relocation costs, any costs associated with downtime doing that and helping them through that process.
All right, any questions for Jake before we get to hear from Ryan regarding the pedestrian bridges? Thank you, sir. All right, Ryan, get us up to speed on the two pedestrian bridges.
Before I started, I wanted to credit all of the work that Jake's been putting in. Today's his wedding anniversary, and he's here doing his presentation.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
You can leave early if you want.
Yes, just speaks to the whirlwind that he's been
You
going
got the
through.
latest city somewhere?
So I've been leading this South End Bike Ped Access Bridges project on our behalf, and it's a little more of a traditional type of approach that we're going after here. It's a design bid build rather than the progressive design build, and the nuance and new experience that we get to go through on that one. Just a quick project overview. This is included in the Infra Grant Award. This included as Segment 2C as shown here. Includes 2 new grade separated shared use path crossings. One on the Wenatchee side over the BNSF railroad tracks. It would tie in to the existing pipeline bridge and then over into South Columbia Street corridor. And then one over SR 28 in East Wenatchee. That would be in the same vicinity as the pipeline bridge, go up and over near the 9th Street Park that they've got. These project goals, specific to this segment, were to remove the existing railroad barrier for South Wenatchee neighborhoods, and specifically their access to the trail, and then also provide continuous north-south cycling, walking around on dedicated right-of-way, and then provide east-west connectivity across the Columbia River. These, while overall a smaller dollar value in the grand scheme of it all, these were big pieces in the Infra Grant Award, and are important for us to follow up on. In the Infra Grant Award, we were awarded $10 million towards the project. And we actually got another 1.5 million through our partnership at, yes, thank you, Councilmember Boyer. Through the Chelan Douglas Transportation Council, we got another STBG grant, or Surface Transportation Block grant for it.
Just tells you how good the staff is.
So going towards those initial project goals of providing this benefit to South Wenatchee area, we also have other commitments to this area. Emma's leading a South Wenatchee corridor study, which is going to lead to great improvements in where we're going to be analyzing channelization and bringing that downtown feel further up all the way to Ferry Street. We've performed a South Wenatchee bicycle connectivity study through the Chelan Douglas Transportation Council, which is very reflective of the need for this South End bike ped bridges project. And then we're also working on a Worthen Street Trail update, which you'll be seeing a budget request for next week. So moving back into the Ped Bridge project, we have been underway since June on this one. We've got a project team in partnership with the City of East Wenatchee, with Exeltech Consulting. They've been in business for over 30 years, and they have a lot of experience doing similar type bridges, ranging from pedestrian and bicycle bridges like we've got going on here to also full vehicular access. Joining Exeltech is a couple of local partners, RH2, Aspect Consulting, and Northwest Geodimensions. They're performing our civil work, our surveying, and then geotechnical analysis. And then they've also brought on some other partners, Aquaterra Consulting, Eco Assets, and Michael Miner Associates, who are going to really be helping on that environmental aspect of the project. Project schedule, we're following the more traditional design, bid, build process. So we're in the design engineering phase right now. We're going to be moving into acquisition once we get completed with our environmental work. Then construction is anticipated to start spring 2025 and ending about 18 months later, fall 26. In order to get to, like Jake had mentioned, our obligation date of September 24 next year, we're making our way through these different steps. As you can see, we have actually just wrapped up our alternative analysis, and we'll go over what the preferred selections were. And in that alternative analysis, we looked at a number of different factors, cost, constructability, sorry, I've got them written down. Design delivery time, again, to Jake's point of us making that September timeframe, permittability, traffic, constructability, and at the same time, we were also looking at, in 10 years, what's this bridge going to look and feel like. We didn't want to limit our decisions based on some of the concerns of making it to the September timeframe. We're committed to doing that, but we want that best product at the end of the day. So moving forward into this East Bridge preferred alternative. So this, we looked at 3 different alternatives for the City of East Wenatchee's side. One being 2 helical ramps on either side of SR 28, and then this preferred alternative going all the way up to their new 9th Street Park. We looked at it. So this is a helical ramp on the Columbia River side going up and over, and then it'll be a prefabricated steel truss bridge, 2 spans of that, then tied directly into that 9th Street Plaza, the upper plaza area they have at the park. We ultimately chose this because of the connectivity that it provides for the City of East Wenatchee's downtown. At the end of this project, you'll be able to go from East Wenatchee's downtown to Wenatchee's downtown on a dedicated pedestrian and bicycle route. And so the placemaking opportunities here and just the atmosphere that we can gain through going up to all the way up to Valley Mall Parkway was ultimately the decision factor in this. And as an engineer, seeing plans kind of start coming together, I was excited to show this. This kind of highlights a little bit of the profile that we're going to be looking at here, what the helical ramp will be looking at. One thing, or some of the things we're considering is the design slope for this. For reference, our existing access ramp on the Wenatchee side is 10 to 11% in slope, very steep. It's well outside of ADA compliance. These are going to be designed to 5% slope, and they meet all guidelines for shared use paths. But yeah, this is kind of showing where our landing spot is at the plaza up above, our ramp location right off of the other plaza on the Pipeline Bridge side.
Have we had any communication with the East Wenatchee? Are they okay with that landing spot?
Yes, and so, thank you, Frank. Yes, I presented to a work session to the East City of East Wenatchee, presenting a couple of the different options. And we spoke and presented them. Ultimately, this was their preference as well. Garen Melton, who's the Public Works Manager, and I did a walkthrough with a few of the different, or in that corridor, and asked the business owners what their preferences were, or what their thoughts were on bringing it into here. We've also had communications with the Cedars Inn Motel right in that area. Yes, so they're aware of what the preferred alternative is, and for that same reason of the connectivity into their downtown, they were in favor of this. Yeah. Then moving on to our side of the river. So this preferred alternative is going to connect to the existing pipeline bridge, and it'll have a new concrete ramp that'll tie into Hale Park and the Loop Trail area. And then it'll actually, so this image is incorrect, but it'll have a helical ramp on the west side of the railroad tracks at Bridge and Columbia Street. The other alternatives we reviewed included just different types of materials, and then different approach types, including switchbacks, which had some issues as far as our access with bicycle traffic, and then also it creates some new hiding locations for behavior that we're looking to mitigate with this construction of this project. And so yeah, this alternative was ultimately selected because of the connectivity, the smooth transition for all types of users, bicycles, pedestrians of all ages. And then it also provides that easy access from our South Wenatchee neighborhoods, which is really the point of the project, to get them up and over and either to the Loop Trail or over into East Wenatchee to live, work, and play. Again, here is a better illustration of what the final product will look like. So there's going to be the new ramp from the bridge that'll tie in down towards Hale Park. You can't see the full configuration, but it's going to hug along the BNSF loop or right away for a while, and then taper back into the Loop Trail. And then this shows where the helical ramp's going to be coming together. And we're going to be looking, this Exeltech's got a great team that's going to be looking, including landscape architects, and who are going to be looking at the placemaking ability to make it feel like a very inviting and gateway into this area. Yes. So with that, I wanted to open up to any questions.
And
for me.
width of on the Wenatchee side, the
Yes.
width of the new path, is it gonna be wider than, I mean, when I ride my
Yes.
bike up there,
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
you sort of run into the guy coming down or up, or there's just
Yeah.
not a lot
Yeah.
of room.
Or the
So,
fence.
Yeah.
yeah.
You hit the fence, I don't hit the fence.
You can't quite see it here, but it is going to be 12 feet wide. So the existing ramp that we have on the Wenatchee side is 8 feet.
Okay.
This 12 feet is designed with the idea that you can have two people walking and then, so that there could be a crossing movement without having to wait or stage to get around. Yeah.
So Ryan, I'm not really seeing any lights.
Yes. So this is we've just gotten to the alternative phases. So these are technically 15% design. So lighting is very much an element that we're going to be looking at, both for the user experience, the security purposes, and all of that will be incorporated as we move a little bit further into the design.
So there'll be lights not only on the trail part, but shining down underneath in the little dark recesses where people might tend to.
I think that they're in looking at our alternatives, one of the factors we were considering is the preventative or trying to prevent any sort of.
Yeah.
Yes,
you're
thank
fine.
you.
You're
Thank you. I was looking for that word. They're increasing
you're
the
fine.
security in the area.
You're understood.
And so that was why having these raised ramps rather than walls kind of be put in. And so yes, that is going to be a consideration. When we move further, we'll work with Dave Erickson to come up with strategies on what they've experienced in this area and ways to mitigate future interference in that regard.
I have a curiosity related to the overpass
Okay.
concept at Miller and these with the railroad. The curiosity is just, what's the clearance that we need above the rail?
Yes, so for over the railroad, it's 24 and a half feet.
Okay.
And so that leads to our ramps on the Wenatchee side are significantly longer than the East
Yeah.
Wenatchee side. That clearance requirement is 17 and a half feet
Yeah.
for pedestrian
Sure,
bridges,
okay.
so,
So we're 24 on railroad, but 17 over highway.
yeah.
On the east side, the existing east side trail.
Yes.
So if I'm coming down the trail and I want to go to Wenatchee now, how do I get onto this?
Yes, I'm trying to think if I've got a better exhibit that'll show it. So you can't see the cursor. So at the very top of the plan shown there, that is where your access off of the pipeline bridge is. And so this new access.
Sort of where the pavilion, where it's sort of open space
Yes,
right there,
yeah.
and you'll just catch a big circular one and come up a couple times.
Yeah,
And then,
and so when you come off of the pipeline bridge, immediately there on the right, there's the little pavilion or plaza that has some decorative bench areas. And where the old Wenatchee Bridge informational sign, on that side, that's where you're gonna hang a right and then start working your way up in the circles. It will be in the area that's currently vegetated and not a trail. The existing trail's not gonna be it's not gonna be within that footprint. And I apologize if I'm not explaining that clearly.
No, I mean, when I look at the design, it looks like the exit of the Helix is across the street over in their plaza, their new plaza.
Okay, okay.
So is that where I get on the trail, or is there also an access from the existing trail?
There is access from the existing trail, so
Okay.
we'll be going up from the existing trail in the helical motion up and over.
there's another.
But
there's
it'll buy,
There's another picture you have that sort of shows it. I think that right there.
there it is, okay, that is
So
better, thank you.
this lower one, Keith, on the left is on the Wenatchee side. Right? So you'll grab it, go up, cross over, and then
So
you'll
on the-
land into the East Wenatchee side
Yeah,
at the top of the screen.
But where it lands in the East Wenatchee side, I thought was across the highway.
It is.
so.
It is.
So on
It's at their new park.
Right. So the existing trail is on the
it's underneath,
west side of
Yeah.
Sunset Highway now.
And you access right there.
Okay.
It's just hard to see, I guess.
Yeah, it's hard to see, yep.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, underneath.
Yes, the existing trail out to Hydro or over through the rest of East Wenatchee is going to be maintained in this new ramp is going to be in the location where the boulders and vegetation is currently at.
Okay.
Any other questions for Ryan? I think the Public Works Committee saw this, or the Finance Committee, one of them saw it a week or two ago. I'm starting to lose track of which one. The $11.5 million that we currently have set aside is probably gonna be short on this one, so some of the 85 may jump in and help this one. Understand going forward, I won't be here, but people will remind you that we didn't get any of the $92 million if we didn't build these two pedestrian. These were key to our scoring, key to getting everything done, so we want to make sure that we do these in the right way as well, so I appreciate your work on these designs and getting to the point where East Wenatchee's happy, and we'll just have to, Senator Leas and others, when we talk about this, say, yeah, we've got more money for paths and trails, so come find us, so.
And to that point, we do have a grant application we're planning on applying for. It's due next Thursday. That will be making us whole on this project. And there's multiple opportunities for pedestrian and bicycle access. Yeah, so we're pursuing all those.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Emma, did I steal your thunder? I'm sorry. I feel bad now. All right.
Hello. Okay, good. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I think I've met most of you. My name's Emma Honeycutt. I'm the Transportation Planning and Development Engineering Manager for the Public Works Department.
Can you get that on one business card?
Not really, it's 2 lines.
Okay.
To be revised imminently.
Okay.
I'll take it. As Frank mentioned, I'm here to kind of run you guys through the North Wenatchee Avenue Corridor project. It's a Connecting Washington project that was also listed on the infogrant application as a match. And so, you know, the money's been federalized. It's technically all state money, but we're treating it as a federal project as a part of the infra package. Brief overview. The need for the project is a safety and mobility need. We have a inordinate amount of pedestrian collisions and some pretty gnarly vehicle collisions on the northern part of North Wenatchee Avenue, kind of by like La Quinta and Wendy's and in that northern area north of Holly. This specific project aims to improve safety for pedestrians and for vehicles, to increase mobility and reduce congestion during the peak hour, and then continue to implement placemaking design elements, street trees, trying to enhance the community feel in the corridor and take away that kind of like, highway. If you've been to Seattle, Aurora Avenue is kind of not the most comfortable place to be, and we don't want that. We want a nice community feel. So kind of to go all the way back to the beginning, this effort of planning North Wenatchee has been going on for quite a while. Originally, we had KPG partner with us and WashDOT to develop what's called the North Wenatchee Avenue Preliminary Engineering Summary Report. That effort was undertaken in 2018 and 2019, and the intent was to identify design parameters for North Wenatchee Avenue, guide the implementation of the funded portions. At that time, the Connecting Washington package had gone through, so we had that $23 million for the Wenatchee side, and the scope was just make improvements. There was no specific scope, and then also identify kind of like a slate of future projects to be funded on the corridor. And up top is the kind of the outcome of what that study was. It built upon, so there's like a North Wenatchee Avenue, a North Wenatchee master plan, a North Wenatchee Avenue concept plan, a North Wenatchee transportation plan. There's a lot of plans out there, but at that time there wasn't like actual cross sections or a specific scope of how to do it. So the point of this study was to complete that planning level effort. Out of that summary report, we also got some cost estimates, an urban design report that outlined those placemaking features. A pretty good transportation analysis, and during that effort in 2018 and 2019, a somewhat significant amount of public outreach was done. I think I saw some of y'all's names on the various reports and public outreach. This next slide shows the result of that public outreach. I believe that open house is probably at the new WashDOT building a few years back, and the feedback from that effort was that the goals, or what people want to see on the avenue, is better vehicle flow, a safe, pedestrian-friendly, walkable community, promoting economic growth and development, and also just creating a new look and feel for the Ave and making it feel like a community and a safe place to exist on all types of transportation, not just cars. So since that effort, that summary report was published I think it was published in January of 2020, and it had a lot of components to it, and it got us going in a good direction. Since that was published, WashDOT, we got a lot more information. WashDOT performed a survey. We had further information to feed a traffic analysis and a better idea of like regional mobility needs. For example, Link Transit had identified a couple needs that maybe hadn't been placed correctly originally in the study effort. So the city of Wenatchee partnered with CDTC, Link Transit, and DOT to
nail down the scope of how we're gonna spend the $17 million that's remaining after the Easy Street roundabout was constructed. So we had several stakeholder meetings and we're not quite done with the final report, but the outcome of that study dialed in the scope for how we're gonna spend the Connecting Washington money and parsed out the phases. Not surprising to anyone, the $17 million is not gonna take us as far as we thought it would in 2019, pre-pandemic, pre-everything. So we wanted to revisit the cost estimates and make sure that we can deliver the project we're committing to deliver, and also just to make sure that the major stakeholders being Link, CDTC, and primarily WashDOT and the city are on the same page and kind of holding hands and walking forward, and we all agree and we're all on the same team. And so essentially what we decided was, I think it's in the next slide. So this middle section, which is phase 1A, is what we are comfortable committing to deliver. Kind of as was mentioned before, previously for the past 5 years, it's been a little bit undetermined whether WashDOT or the city was going to deliver this project. As part of this effort, revisiting the scope and really looking at the stakeholders and who's going to be impacted and what the city views as priorities in terms of placemaking. And we care about mobility, absolutely, but we also care about our community. And it just sort of made sense for us to hang on to the design and deliver it as a city. It's the $17 million is all DOT money. There's not a local match currently, but it just makes sense for us to deliver it and kind of be able to lead the discussions about right-of-way and lead the discussions about access.
It's the state highway, but it's in our
Yeah.
urban area.
It's a
and
state
we should
highway, it's
control
urban
what it
area.
looks like, yeah.
It's a very urban project, and for this, the north central region of WashDOT they don't have a lot of really urban areas. I think we're kind of the forerunner in delivering those kinds of projects, and so I think we can do it. We're currently in the process of understanding what's that gonna look like funding-wise, and as soon as I get the okay from WashDOT, we're gonna get a RFP on the streets to pick up a consultant and kind of start moving forward. Because we have, as Jake kind of and both Ryan alluded to, we have an obligation date that we've committed to on the term sheet for the Confluence project of 2026 to obligate construction money. So we'll get there. I'll dive a little bit into the specific features of this project, kind of where we landed. I think some of this might be new, and much of it is what was arrived at in 2018. Essentially, the main elements of the project are a raised median that restricts left turns off
So
of,
this is all right in, right out?
yes, all right in, right out.
Thank you.
Kind of a raised curb going down the middle, increasing the left turn storage to go up Maiden Lane to get to Walmart and Home Depot. So we won't see that back up into the main line.
So is there gonna be 2 left turn lanes or just increasing the line? Or do
It's
we-
one left turn lane,
Okay.
increasing it by quite a bit. What you can see here is a mid-block U-turn going southbound, so that the distance between Maiden and Holly, we just felt like it was too long to not give someone an opportunity to do a U-turn and access all of the northbound businesses. So we kept that element in. And then, let's see. Oh, and then just basic widening the sidewalk to 8 feet and with a 6-foot landscaping buffer where we could fit it in between. To drill down a little bit, here's the cross-section of what we're envisioning currently. Don't hold me to this, we haven't, we're probably at 10% design right now. This is just a quick way to see what it's gonna look like. We'll see where we land with the median. I was hoping, I think Jersey barrier is really ugly, and so I'm hoping that we can have something that actually looks kind of nice. It would be great if,
Tell us how you feel about Jersey barriers.
have you seen it? Especially the high stuff, it's as tall as I am, it's 5
Okay.
feet. So, yeah, this is just kind of the cross-section, and that lane in the middle is actually just like a left turn lane, and eventually when you're in it, you'll hit a U-turn and flip around. Also just as part of this project, we are planning and budgeting to put in an entire new stormwater system. So
Does Jessica know
make
about that?
Jessica happy.
She gave me that blank look like we are.
I can't remember if I told her that yet, but I'm sure she'll be happy. It'll be great.
Okay.
So here's a zoom in of the mid-block U-turn. I tried to put the businesses so you could see where we're at in space. They're pretty slick. We're planning to have a signal. It also will be a good opportunity for pedestrians to get across the street to kind of make it feel more cohesive. And so it'll be a pedestrian generated push button and then also a sensor or something to alert the facility when someone's waiting to do a U-turn. And then the idea is that that signal will be hooked in with the signal at Maiden Lane and also Holly.
Will there be, U-turns also designed in at the traffic signals?
Yes, yep. Yep, and so ideally, if we, in a perfect world, we would have had the budget to do this mid-block U-turn and then also construct the U-turn at Holly as well, continuing to go south, but that's our, we call it phase 1B, where if costs come down or if things become more advantageous economically, that's kind of the first thing we want to put back in so that it's more comfortable. What else? Okay, here's a close-up of the Maiden Lane intersection work. We are originally in the old report, there was like this access road that kind of came down and hooked into Horse Lake, and it was determined that it wasn't necessary, and also it was one of the most expensive components of the project. So by eliminating that, we were able to bring in quite a bit of work at Maiden Lane. This is a northbound U-turn, so if you're headed north and you're in that left turn lane, you can do a U-turn and get to Easy's and Discount Tire and all those stores. The east leg accessing Marston and Marson is retained with this design as well. Okay. And a bus pullout to get the link buses out of the traveled way, and then just a little bit of a queue jump so that they can jump in ahead of traffic prior to the signal turning green for southbound traffic, just to get them out of the way.
So if I'm coming southbound and I want to go to Starbucks.
If you're coming southbound and you want to go to Starbucks,
How might I do that?
you would go, I think it's like 500 feet down and do that mid-block U-turn.
Okay.
Yeah.
What if I'm a supply truck?
If you're a supply truck going to Starbucks, you would take a right, you just do rights the whole way. You'd have to,
So I'm coming south, where am I turning right to get to Starbucks?
you would, if it was me, I would orient myself so that I was coming east on Maple or Holly and take a left.
Right, and come in. Still won't get there because
Yeah.
you have meeting strip, yeah.
Yeah, it's not it's not the quickest, for sure.
But I think, also supply trucks or large delivery trucks, it's also not ideal for them to be turning left across the existing left turn lane for Maiden and the other two lanes. So a lot of the activity working with the property owners, especially for freight deliveries and things like that,
they could.
it's working for them to identify appropriate freight routes for the area and how to bring in those specialty.
And again, I'm curious about that because during construction, I had to drive a 50-foot trailer down through there to get to Les Schwab. And that was impossible without running over a whole bunch of cones. So I'm hoping that we're taking those kind of things into consideration as we do this.
And Councilmember Poyer mentioned they could use Confluence Parkway to some degree and then go down to McKittrick and cut across and come down and you'd be right there.
I think that, that's having all of these north-south corridor projects being enhanced within the same time frame it's going to look and feel a lot different for that kind of industrial traffic, I think. It'll be a huge advantage. Oh, so this, oh gosh, put me on the spot. It's okay. The ped trails shown here are now part of this project, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, the brown thing, yeah.
The brown thing
Yeah.
was the acquisition of right-of-way and construction has
Yeah,
been
we got
funded?
money for that, yeah.
Yes.
We'll have the shared use trail from Walnut all the way to Maple on that old irrigation right of way. That'll start later this year, early next year. But we did receive 100% funding to acquire all that right of way, complete design and construction of that piece. So that'll that'll really extend our kind of bike lane facilities, you know, which currently stop at Pine Street. So it'll extend them all the way here to Maiden. And we can do it sort of on the same timeline as this project as well.
Yep.
Are you working with the Pathways project? Is this coordinate with what they're trying to do?
Yes, we have. We've been talking to Jeff.
I know it's off the subject, but.
Yeah. We have had conversations with Jeff Wilkins about what that'll look like and what our needs are in terms of what we need to identify.
Okay.
So,
I'd
does
like
that
to
answer your
talk-
question?
I'd like to talk to you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we can talk about that.
thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so as far as project schedule, this does not look as cool as Jake's did, but I tried last night. Like I said, as soon as we get the green light, we'll get going with design and getting a consultant on board, and then start right away as soon as possible. Right away is gonna be the critical piece for us. There's quite a lot of acquisitions. They're all commercial properties, and they all involve big signs that aren't gonna be there anymore. So that'll be an interesting journey over the next year. And then we ideally will get obligated in 2026 and then hit the ground running the following spring for construction. Hopefully finish it in 1 year, might take 2. Are there any other questions about, the specifics of the design or kind of what we're planning on?
No, my only issues are, we're stretching our staff pretty thin with all of the work we're asking them to do. And I know we've agreed to take this on because it's the right thing to do, but I'm assuming we're out trying to hire more engineers and more folks to help us with these things.
So we currently launched, was it today?
Yesterday.
Are we short 2 or 1?
Position for one
Okay.
more PE, but we did bring on Nicole
Right.
here this year, so we did grow that PE staff, and I think like for instance this project, she's been doing an amazing job coming in here and taking over Mega Kittrick and Spring Water through
Yeah.
construction, which are 2 really challenging projects to jump right into, and so as that wraps up, I think this is one opportunity we see her, and she has a lot of experience at WashDOT. While we are taking this, we are going to remain in partnership with WashDOT. We've been continuing to meet with them to find efficiencies on how we can streamline some of the activities, for instance, around right-of-way acquisition or even environmental permitting. So we'll continue to work in conjunction with them to try to find those efficiencies and ways we can streamline. But there is a large capital program over the next 5 years. I mean, we're over $200 million, so it's going to be. But I think we are on the way of bringing in great consultants and continue to look that way to help us get us through this.
And just as we look at all of those projects you just looked at, we've got right-of-way issues with all of them. And so we're hiring a law firm out of Seattle to help us with those that get complicated. So, and then the gal who's our design build wrote the book on that,
Robin.
or wrote the law on it.
She wrote the RCW.
Yeah, and the attorney we hired has got the handbook that the judges use for right-of-way acquisition. So we're hiring a really incredible group of folks to work with us on what are going to be complicated projects, all of them to some degree. Any questions for Emma? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one thing before we get out of here tonight, is next week, we had planned to have a meeting, and there was a number of items on the agenda. I saw it earlier today. I think there was maybe as many as 14 or 15 items. Found out earlier this week that Councilmember Rojanastatian is going to be out of the country, as is Councilmember Huffaker. Both have international travel plans. Travis is going to be running the Taste of Pybus, which is their annual fundraiser. And Linda wants to be at the Misawa stuff on Wednesday night. So I think at this point,
Wednesday night.
well, hers is the fundraiser dinner for the Miss Vidal. Yeah, not the Thursday, yeah.
I thought that was tonight. The Vidal barbecue is tonight.
Meat on barbecue is tonight.
Yeah.
I had to cancel, because it was more important I'd be here.
So I think at this point, we might be better off just not having a meeting next Thursday and meeting again on October the 12th. There are a couple of items. There's the emergency declaration for Jessica. So just assume that I declared an emergency and that they're gonna fix it, and we're gonna ask for your blessing when you come back on the 12th. I know David Erickson had something that didn't seem it was all that important. So maybe it's best, that otherwise we'll go with 4, because you could be here next Thursday.
I could be, yeah.
Yeah, and you could be here and you could be here, but gone, so we'd have 4. Or do you want to wait till we have a bigger number? I'll leave it up to you guys. I mean, you all know what's on the agenda. I've told you all some of the things that we're working on, so those are all planned on Tammy's agenda. So I'll leave it up to you guys to sort of make that decision.
I think some of the things that are gonna be on the agenda are important enough that we need more than just a quorum here. We need as many voices as possible.
I don't disagree with you about that at all.
I can be here, but I would prefer to wait.
Okay. So with that, we will not have a meeting on the 28th. We will meet again on October 12th. You'll make the
One of my
appropriate.
last 5 meetings.
Yeah.
Now I'm down to 4.
Yeah. So you'll make the appropriate notifications? Okay. So Jessica, we declared a state of emergency, go. Don't wait for us.
Yeah, get it done.
Yeah.
Already done.
And also Wednesday at 3:30, we
Yes.
have welcoming reception.
So Wednesday at 3:30, and Tammy is gonna send an email out to our city staff and ask any of them that want to come out and at least welcome them when they get off the bus. It'd be nice to have a contingency of folks.
The greeting line.
The greeting line, and then we'll have the ceremony in here.
Yeah.
And Tammy's got most of that organized, and
I won't be at the welcome reception because I'll be busy setting up the welcome dinner.
Well, I have a question on that. I told you that I did, when I returned from Japan, I did send in my individual, I'm a member of the Sister City Association.
Say that again?
I'm not getting any information on the welcoming banquet or the farewell banquet.
Oh, okay. Wednesday night at 5:00 is the welcome dinner with the welcome receptions here at City Hall at
3:30 and 5 o'clock at
But I'm
the,
thinking do I have to pay somebody? Do I have to RSVP? I'm not
Just show
getting-
up. There's no charge.
yeah, just show up.
Just show up. And they're gonna want you there. Sunday, there is a farewell dinner at the museum.
Right.
And Friday night, all of the students are on their own. They spend the evening with their families. The adults are going to, I believe they're going to Olive Garden.
Olive Garden.
And Saturday, no, they're going to El Portone on Thursday.
So we'll get you the agenda.
Have the agenda.
Yeah,
Yeah,
then just
I-
follow that.
But
I have the agenda, Mark. I
I
will send
have,
it
I
out
have
to
the
everybody.
agenda. I was expecting to hear, okay, if you're going to this, we need to know with the numbers and if there's a cost,
Yeah.
There's
just like
no
any other
cost.
event.
Yeah.
There's no cost.
No cost to show up as much of it as you can.
Yeah. And we're expecting about 100 people. So,
All right, anything else for the good of the order?
Are we having finance too or not?
Yes, well, yes, we'll have finance, because we're gonna make
Okay.
a bunch of budget decisions, so Brad doesn't let us off the hook. We will just not be in regular session. Just none? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so we'll have finance committee next Thursday at
That
2:30.
Your Honor,
Okay.
I have to be at the senior center at 3:30.
Okay, so if you want to find someone to sit in for the budget discussion next Thursday, you can find someone to sit in. But you know who it's not gonna be. It's not gonna be Top, and it's not gonna be Keith. So
Okay.
maybe it's,
Can you do it, Mark?
Yeah, because I'm going to be here for the welcoming reception.
Okay.
I'm going to be like number 5 in line here. We got,
well, yeah, welcoming's
Two
Wednesday.
pairs.
Welcoming's Wednesday,
right.
so this would be Thursday.
yeah, no,
Okay.
I can do.
All right,
Can.
thank you, everybody.